We can start by draining the coolant. On the passenger side, there's a 19mm drain plug. You can get to it from the top, but this AC hose kind of gets in the way. You can get to it from the wheel well. That's the better way to get it. Next, we want to move this air duct here. You need to get this cover off. There's a 10mm on this side and a 10 here, and I believe there's supposed to be a 10 here. That comes off, and then we can get access to the clamp for this. Comes off here, and then this little sensor there. So these two hoses just pop out, nothing fancy, and then the whole thing should be able to just separate and move out of the way. I missed a plug underneath. Disconnects here. In order to take the fan shroud off, the fan has to come with it. So we want to disconnect or pull off that fan, and it's a 36mm. You can rent that tool from the auto parts store. It comes in a kit, but we'll want to crack that loose, and it should be regular threads, lefty-loosey. So a few good whacks, and you can use a pry bar to get in between one of the bolts on the pulley, just to kind of hold it in place. But a couple of whacks, came off. Now the fan will just spin off its shaft. So we got that busted loose for now. Let's start unbolting the shroud. Before we remove the shroud, we have to remove the upper radiator hose, and that's just a clamp like this on the radiator side. And the shroud is held on by two 8mm bolts. I got ahead of myself. So this top cover here has to come off, and it's just a bunch of clips. There's this little screw clips, so this whole plastic piece can come off first. Okay, so now we can move the shroud. So this is already loose. So now we just loosen the fan all the way. So now we can remove our transmission cooler lines. It's a 5/8 on the line side, and then a 1 1/8 on the fitting side, or a pair of vice grips. I just happen to have one of these lying around from a different job. So I'm going to tighten up the drain plug and move my pan over here, because we have to take the lower radiator hose off on this side. So I'm under the vehicle on the driver's side, just to kind of give you an idea of how to get this lower radiator hose off. On this side right here, there's a little tab. That tab has to be bent out of the way. It resides in a little notch. When you get under yours, you'll kind of see that notch and that tab, so you gotta bend that tab out of the way. And then this metal ring right here that goes around, you want to spin that counterclockwise. Roughly an inch. It says 45 degrees, which ends up being close to an inch, inch and a half, and and then you pull it back and it'll separate. It's kind of a pain. So now I'm up top. I turned it counterclockwise. Now you can see it start to separate, and then it'll gush. So let me get two hands, but that's how it comes apart. Kind of a pain, but it is doable. I use channel locks over this ring, and it is just this outer ring, metal outer ring here, not this thing or the rubber hose, but the outer ring is what you want to turn. One tip is to take that radiator hose off before you take your lines off. That way all that transmission fluid and stuff won't be dripping on you, or it won't make it slippery when trying to get that hose off. So once the hose is off, then come up and take your cooler lines off. And then once you have the cooler lines off, you can use the caps that are on the new radiator to plug off the holes. That way you're not, just reduces, I guess, the mess. Now once we're here, it should be a matter of two 10mm bolts holding up these top brackets. Those come off, and the radiator should slide out. So we can just clean up our area of any debris. And that's it. There's really not much else to do for prep. We'll just slap the new one in. Now the new radiator does come with brand new O-rings. I recommend using a little silicone paste around the rings, and that'll help put that lower radiator hose back over the top of it and seal right so you're not accidentally ripping the O-rings on the way in. All right, now we can put our brackets back on. Transmission cooler lines back on. You can just wipe off the threads real good. Now we can put our lower radiator hose back on. So this will be the opposite. It'll slip on, then twist, and then we want to knock that tab in to keep it locked. So now that that lower hose is on, we can go ahead and fill up our degas bottle just enough so we could check for any leaks at that lower hose before we put everything else back. Well, now would be a good time to slap in a new thermostat while you're here. From here, it's just a matter of an 8mm holding the power steering pump on, and then two 10mm bolts holding the thermostat housing on, and then that can separate. So really easy to just go ahead and put in one of these at this point. That's how quick and easy just replacing the thermostat is. Since you have this out, might as well. So now we're confident the lower radiator hose isn't leaking. We can go ahead and put our fan shroud. There we go, just a couple of turns and that'll hold it, and then I can put this thing on. And you do have to transfer the clips over from the old one for these to bolt into. There's just little clips on the old radiator, so just pop those off, slip them in on this one. Now the upper radiator hose can go back on. Next we can put our intake stuff back on. Got the two hoses by the throttle body. And then don't forget that connector underneath the air box. So now we can go ahead and start it up, run through the bleeding procedure. On the inside of the vehicle, we want to turn the heat to the hottest setting, turn the fan to max, and then just let it warm up to operating temperature. You know, you can, flutter the gas if you want a few times, get that water pump to circulate the coolant just a little faster, but it's not necessary. Then, once it's to operating temperature, go ahead and turn it off, let it cool down, and then check the degas bottle to make sure that it's full. If you need to top it off, go ahead and top it off. And that's it. Good to go. Well, there you go. That's how you can replace a radiator on a 1998 Lincoln Navigator. Also a Ford Expedition will be done the same way. The hardest part of the job is to get that cooling fan off of the water pump. For me, I had to use a pry bar to wedge in between one of the bolts to prevent it from spinning, and then having that wrench on there and then hitting it with a hammer a few times. Now it is regular threaded, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, and it took a few good hits, but it finally broke loose. Do not put Loctite on it when you put it back on. It's not needed. And then if that has to come off in a couple years, later, it's going to be even extra hard if you put Loctite on it. Oh, and then that lower radiator hose, that was kind of a pain. It's an interesting design, but really once you bend that tab out of the way, get some channel locks on it, turn it a little, and then it'll slide off. Other than that, Not too difficult of a job. Pretty straightforward. So, all right. Well, like, subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.